Hi there, my name is Eliezer. That is the name that the Lord has given me, and that's the name I'm gonna use for this video. I want to tell you guys my testimony, mainly because that's just something that you do when you become a Christian, I guess, but mine has been particularly exciting, and I know that it's a story that will encourage a lot of people because it encourages everybody that I tell it to. There are people in my life who have heard my story and don't actually believe it to be true because so much has happened, but that's okay. I swear, well, you're not supposed to swear on anything. You let your yes be yes and your no be no, and everything I'm about to share with you is 100% true. So, yeah, my name is Eliezer, and I did post another testimony about 5 years ago, right when I came to Christ, and that one is under the name on YouTube of From Lucifer's New Age to Jesus. God has blessed me so much, although I don't deserve it. It says in parentheses, but I've wanted to do a new one for quite some time now because he has done so much for me, and yeah, like I said, my story has just been really, really exciting. So buckle up, and I hope you get a lot out of this. I hope more than anything that this inspires you towards a closer relationship with God yourself. And I have notes just taken on my phone here, so I'm just gonna be looking down to read them. So my previous testimony was a lot more about my previous life before I found God, before coming to Christ, and this one is more so about what has happened since. And let me tell you, it's been a wild ride. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my place here. Okay, so born and raised to two extremely loving yet flawed parents, I was raised in a completely secular household. My folks worshipped hockey and rock and roll, and they loved to party. As a result of their drinking, not by them but by others I was brought around, I was molested about 15 times between infancy and age 14. Beginning in infancy, I remember I was molested as just a young infant by someone in the family. And so I was off to a really rough start right from the beginning. And as a result of their drinking, or as a result of everything that had happened, this ongoing abuse resulted in me turning to hard drugs by the age of 13. I was using meth, MDMA, and prescription pills such as Adderall, Oxycontin, whatever else I could find, and whatever else I could buy through people at school. And I started smoking cigarettes too at a really young age. I was born an outcast and was annually targeted by super unstable bullies who would beat me up, make up lies about me, stalk me, just generally treat me really unfairly. Every year there were new kids who just made it their life goal to mistreat me, and when I was younger I looked a lot like a boy. In my previous testimony I showed you some pictures and you could see why I would be bullied, but I was bullied really, really bad all throughout my youth, and it wasn't until I was about 14 that I decided to start standing up for the other kids who were being abused and mistreated and stop allowing it to affect me so badly. But it did affect me, and it still does to this day, but God is helping me to move past that and to see myself through his eyes and not the eyes of all the cruel kids that subjected me to that when I was younger. At age 18, I met a man who I moved in with who collected Nazi memorabilia, and he had a legion of demons that I inherited as a result of our situation. Because I entered into a relationship right out of high school with a man who, he was my boss at an automotive shop that I was working at, and my parents told me that I had to get rid of my cat. And my cat was my absolute best friend of, like, he was everything to me, and I had him since I was 14, so obviously I wasn't gonna give him up. So this guy liked me, and so I moved in with him, and I liked him too, but he, like I said, he collected Nazi memorabilia, and as a result of that, I quickly became a neo-Nazi and began hanging out with like-minded people. So, yeah, I was pretty bad. And I was doing a lot of drugs at the time, and I was just a really, really, really awful person. That boyfriend, I cheated on him numerous times. He's the only one I ever cheated on, but I treated him terribly. And now I understand the significance of having certain objects and whatnot in your home. Like, there was this Christmas where all my family came to my house. We would, go to each other's houses, depending on the holiday. And I remember putting on neo-Nazi, or not neo-Nazi music, but like Nazi march music, and I put on a Nazi uniform that I had bought, and I was like marching around the house saying Hail Hitler. And looking back now, like that wasn't even drugs, that was full-blown demonic possession. Um, and as a result, I lost most of my family then. And although we've tried to make things work and make things better, nothing has gotten better between anyone in my family. The only person in my family that I have is my dad. And which sucks because I was 18, and I mean, I got over it as soon as I left the relationship. I completely changed as soon as I left that relationship. But my life was a cesspool when Jesus found me, which is a huge reason why I love him so dearly. At the end of that 2-year-long relationship, tragedy struck. 2.5 years before, I should mention, my mom got into a near-fatal motorcycle accident, following which she had 3 amputations. Following which she had 3 amputations. That occurred midway through my final year of high school, and I'm confident that I only graduated because of the compassion and the mercy of my teachers. I started snorting MDMA off of my textbooks in school and drinking Everclear daily at school. That was in 2013. I remember using ketamine as well in school. I was just off my rocker all of the time, and I'm really, really high on Oxy and whatever else I could get my hands on. Oxycodone was my main drug of choice. In 2015, my mom was just getting healthy enough to start looking for a new job. I called and asked to move back in with them because I wasn't happy with the boyfriend that I was with. Obviously, it wasn't a healthy environment, and I actually came to learn that he may have very well been abusing his child. He was 43 when I met him, so he had a daughter who was 13 when I moved in. But I ended up trying to move back in with my mom after him and I had moved to a new city, which is where I live now. I've lived here for 10 years. And my mom just said, Jordan, you just moved out there, like, just give it another chance. Oh, 1 second. My iPad said it was gonna die, sorry. But anyway, I was in this really unhealthy relationship with this really bad man, and my parents didn't know any of that stuff, but, well, they knew about the neo-Nazi stuff, but they didn't realize it was demonic. Like I said, my parents didn't know anything about any of that. And, basically what ended up happening was I asked my mother if I could move back in with them, and they said no because of my cat. My cat would spray everywhere. That was the problem. And he did. He continued to spray everywhere else that I lived. But anyway, in 2015, my mom was just getting healthy enough to start looking for a new job. And when I asked her to move back in, she said just try a little longer and rejected my request. One evening, I was high as a kite in the bathtub when I heard the voice of God for the very first time. My neck started to do this cracking thing. It was weird. I don't know how to explain it. It felt like popcorn, and my neck was shaking. And a feeling of dread washed over me completely, and a voice said very clearly inside my head, send your mother a text goodbye because you're never going to speak to her again. I obeyed, thinking that was it for me. I thought that I was gonna die that night. I thought I had OD'd, and whoever was up there, had had enough of me, essentially. But it was 3 a.m. that night when my dad called, and I was still awake because I was high on drugs, and he said, honey, I don't know what's happened. Mama is dead. Like I said, we had no reason to believe that. She was getting better. She, was walking perfectly again. She finally had a new foot. She had 3 amputations on her foot. But what ended up happening was it was a cerebral aneurysm that took her. And yeah, so ever since that day, my life was changed. Because who was that voice who told me, who warned me beforehand, and gave me the opportunity to say goodbye to my mom? I texted her that night, and she texted me back saying she loves me oodles and oodles, and that she will talk to me in the morning. And she told me that she had a pool party that night with my dad, and like everything was good. This was a long time ago now, almost 10 years, so I'm not crying, but it was the hardest day of my life at that point for sure. So it was the realization that there really was a God up there that kept me not only alive, but turned the worst possible thing into one of the most beautiful things that ever happened to me. Ever since that night, my utmost desire has been seeking the voice that urged me to speak to my mama one last time. She did reply, like I said. Shortly after her passing, I worked up the courage to leave my boyfriend at the time, who I later realized was likely a pedophile, and I needed to find a job in a new place. I cried out to Jesus, saying that I'd give my life to him if he would fix my mess of a life. Overnight, everything about me changed, and I was urged to get off all of my medications and to leave my partner, like, urgently, and to stop sleeping with him. I just got this, sudden urge to start living a better life, and so I quit my 7 medications, and I once had a psychologist told me that she didn't believe me because that would have killed me. Let's see if I can remember what I was on. I don't know if I should state it, but I was on oxycodone, Dexedrine, gabapentin, Cymbalta, Seroquel, olanzapine, and one other one that I'm not remembering right now. But I quit all of them at once, and I had absolutely no withdrawal whatsoever. So that was pretty cool. So ever since that day, I devoted myself to finding that God who spoke to me, right? And I devoted myself to cleaner living to the best of my ability. I think I still drank, but I got off of all drugs, and I was sober from drugs for a really long time, for 9 years. And so before this happened, I was sitting in the bath one morning, and I was really depressed about my mom, and I was looking up whether or not dropping a toaster or a blow dryer in the bathtub would electrocute you enough to kill you, or if it would just cause brain damage. And I ended up hearing that same little voice again saying, Jordan, just get yourself looking nice and go out and see where the day takes you. And as he said that, I looked down at the tub ledge, and there was a perfect heart-shaped water droplet on the bathtub, and that was really cool. And so I did that. I got myself ready. I had no idea where I was gonna go or what I was gonna do. I had just lost my job, and I had just broken up with my boyfriend, so he was at work, and I had only so long to find a place or whatever, right? So a series of events. It was weird. I don't want to explain all of it, but basically, like, my iPod, which I had like 10,000 songs on, kept playing the band Tattoo, which I rarely ever listen to. And when I went to a restaurant to grab something to eat, I noticed it started playing when it was wrapped around. I had my headphones wrapped around my neck, and it started playing, and it was Tattoo again. And so I grabbed my food, and I was like, that's weird, Tattoo, what does that mean? And then I realized as I was eating, a boy walked by who had previously told me about the local tattoo shop because I'm an artist. And so I thought, oh, tattoo shop, okay, I'm gonna go to the tattoo shop, maybe get a job there or something, maybe apprentice. And so I walked to the tattoo shop, and I ended up meeting a man there, and I did end up getting a job, and I kind of played around, but it's not relevant, but the couple who owned it were swingers and they tried to sleep with me, and so that didn't work out. um, but anyway, the man that I met there, I ended up seeing him later that day at the gas station, and I was just kind of hanging around the gas station having a smoke, and he was like, "What are you doing? Like, who are you? I've never seen you around here before," because it's a small town that I live in. And I told him my situation, and he offered me both a job as a nanny and a room in his house. He said that he was a truck driver and he was off work because he was having some health problems, but he was going to go back to work, and so he hired me on the spot. And he grabbed all my things and moved me into his house. And excited, I took him up on it, and soon all moved in. It was during this time when I sought the Lord in every religion and grew extraordinarily close to Him. Um, yeah. Little did I know, though, this was my first wilderness season. So I didn't know anything about Christianity, and I didn't want to seek the Lord in Christianity because I had never experienced a Christian that was good. I never experienced a Christian that made me want to know their God. In fact, it was always the complete opposite. People who were Christian always hated me because I was a little goth kid and I was troubled. And now when I see kids like me, I just want to love them and take care of them. Like, I don't understand how people could be so hateful and so misunderstanding and cruel and judging, but it was because of the way that I had seen Christians behave in the past that I wanted nothing to do with that religion. And so I allowed this man and his religion to influence me, and he was very much a Luciferian. Like, he believed that Lucifer was the real Jesus and that Jesus was the real evil one, and like the truth couldn't be that easy. And so I sought the Lord in everything. I started reading the Tao and doing Tai Chi and Qigong and Buddhism and reading the Buddhist scriptures and the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita from Hinduism. Like, I just dove right into everything religion related. And I want to add that this guy who had met me, he was in his 50s and he was an ex-biker. And he was a Satanist, like I just said, and he was also a murderer. And I'm not going to go any deeper into that, but he was a very dangerous person. And I've always been the kind of person to be attracted to people like that because I honestly believe that they'll see my heart and my kindness and my love and it'll change them. And in a way, I think it kind of did in this circumstance, which you'll hear about later. But yeah, it wasn't, God led me there, but he led me there to get to know him, not because it was going to be a blessing. So that started a 5-year journey that I call my first wilderness experience. And I just spent the whole entire time studying. Like, I wasn't allowed to leave my house or anything or go out and see anyone. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. I had a friend buy me tickets to see my favorite band in the Philippines, and she bought plane tickets and everything, and I couldn't go because I felt bad. Like, oh yes, I forgot to add that this guy, he had a spirit of infirmity. And so what that means is every time I tried to leave, something seriously wrong would happen with his body because his demons knew that they were that I would leave if it weren't for my compassion, and if he were healthy, then I would have left. But for example, within 3 months of me moving in, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. And then a couple months later, he was diagnosed with hemochromatosis, and he had to go and get dialysis multiple times a month, or yeah, multiple times a month. And then he was diagnosed with something called hidradenitis suppurativa, which is like cysts that grow all over your body. And like, when I ended up leaving him, he had just gotten one removed from his throat, completely cut out. Like, but every time I tried to leave or thought about leaving or tried to make a plan to leave, something crazy would happen that would prevent me from doing it. So, that's what kept me in that relationship for 5 years. And as a teenager, I was a Satanist. Although I prayed to Jesus after my mom died, I was easily led astray by his beliefs, like how all religions are true, etc. In my other testimony, I posted pictures of me when I was younger. I had like inverted crosses and I had a Marilyn Manson shirt on. I was a goth, but when I was a teenager, I literally studied Christianity to turn people away from it, and I actually turned quite a few of my friends away from it when I was younger. And now it's funny, I'm not going to get into that, but God has used me to get those people back into the faith now, which is really cool. But I had never, like I said, I had never met a Christian who made Christ look like someone I wanted to follow. So I studied everything from the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead to the Tao to Qigong, Tai Chi, Buddhism, Hinduism, the Kabbalah, and eventually I became a devoted theosophist without even knowing what that was. Which, as I'll explain later, is Luciferianism, and it's the philosophy of the United Nations and our world's elite. So I was studying alchemy, astrology, Reiki. I was practicing tarot. I was remote viewing, and I could astral project nearly on demand. I was working with various demons. I didn't know they were demons at the time, and although my life was filled with magic, something huge was still missing. 5 years later, God. I still had come to no closer to discovering who that voice was who guided me all those years ago. And I doubted it was Thoth or Saint Germain, the two primary demons that I was working with. I was doing chakra work, I was making crystal jewelry and taking Reiki courses to become Reiki leaders. I have stories about that too, about how Reiki, the symbols that I were downloaded when I was in Reiki, ended up being, my friend ended up sending me it's like a booklet that the CIA released on secret symbols that pedophiles use to talk to each other and to recognize each other, and those were the symbols that were downloaded to me when I was doing Reiki. Okay, so and then I later learned through John Ramirez, who some of you may know. He said that that's exactly what astral projection is you go around and you curse different places and you think you're doing good things, but you don't know what those symbols mean. And so astral projecting, you would curse these certain places and localities with certain symbols, thinking you're doing good, but really you're cursing them with like pedophilia and addiction and other kind of demonic symbolism, like sigils. So I was reading the Summit Lighthouse books and teachings by Kim Mitchells, Alice Bailey, Edgar Casey, the Seth books, Rhonda Byrne, Manly P. Hall, and the likes of Helena Blavatsky. So that was my philosophy, and that's theosophy, okay? So that's like ascended master teachings, and a lot of people don't realize that when they're in the new age, they're just following what these guys want you to do, which is pay attention to absolutely every religion that focuses on yourself and turns you away from God. It was December 17th, 2019, when I wrote a letter to God explaining, I still haven't found you. Like, all of these miraculous things are happening, and yes, I can astral project, and I've had some crazy experiences. Like, one time I astral projected to Putin's house, Vladimir Putin, because I was like a huge fan of him before I became a Christian. And I had never seen his house before, and I literally went to his house, and I couldn't get within the grounds because he had demons that came, and they looked like, I think they're called Dementors or something in Harry Potter. I forget what they're called, but there's these black things in Harry Potter, and that's exactly what Vladimir Putin had around his house, preventing people from getting in. Like, he had demonic bodyguards. But anyway, I was able to do all of that stuff, but I still hadn't found God. I wasn't anywhere closer to God. I wasn't anywhere closer to the healing that I needed. Like, there were so many things that I needed breakthrough with, and none of that was happening. So it was December 17th, 2019, when I wrote him a letter explaining how I still hadn't found him. At this point, I was brainwashed into believing that I was an indigo starseed from Orion, who is one of Sanat Kumar's Satan, chosen 144,000 light workers who is on a mission here to raise the vibration of our planet from Venus. Like, I thought I was from Orion, but you know, that's theosophy. That's what they teach, that Sunat Kamara is coming here with 144,000 light workers. So when you hear those words, indigo, starseed, light workers, it's all Luciferianism, okay? And it's all to build up the self and to make you feel special and to make you feel like you're something that other people aren't and that you have something that other people don't have, okay? And it's just pure selfishness is all it is. I'd come to the realization now that not only how obscure, insane, and how obscure and insane that all sounded, but especially how unfathomably self-centered all of it was, which urged me to write to God. So it was around that time when the Holy Spirit spoke to me again. Jordan, do you really think that the true God would make the truth so incredibly hard to find? And that really stood out to me. Because with the things that I was studying, alchemy and all of that, it was all so difficult, you know? You had, or what was that other book? A Course in Miracles. Like, those books are so complicated and there's so many rules and things that you have to learn. It's secret knowledge, right? That's the oldest lie in the book. That's what God says in Genesis, is eat from the tree of the fruit of knowledge and you will be like gods. So I realized that that's what I was doing, and so I wrote that letter to God just saying, I'm done worshipping myself. I'm done with this magic. Oh, and I forgot to mention that around this time I had two people come to me within the span of a week telling me that they both had dreams that I was a witch. And there was a part of me that was like, ooh, cool, I'm a witch. That means I have power. But there was also a part of me that was extremely ashamed of that because I knew that I was trying to find God and I knew deep down that I didn't want to be a witch. That's not something that I was seeking for because witches, they they serve themselves and they work with demons, and I knew that, but I thought I was on the right path because my theosophy taught that Jesus was an ascended master, and so I would pray to Jesus still and he would still talk to me. Like, Jesus was still there throughout all of this, but he wouldn't allow me to receive the actual healing that I needed until I came to realize who he truly was and the fact that he was the one true God, and until I actually repented of all of my witchcraft. So early in the new year, I sought a school. I was looking for like a spiritual school of some sort, and I ended up finding this school called the Arcane School by Lucius Trust, and I believe that's spelled Lucis Trust. And I emailed them and I said, can I be a part of your school? I told them a bit of my story and how I've just been seeking God ever since he talked to me. And they said, stop your search for God because everything we teach you has to do with what's within. And if you want to be a part of our school, you're going to have to focus on the divinity within yourself. And so read these books. They gave me a list of books by people that I had already read their readings from: Alice Bailey, Manly P. Hall, Helena Blavatsky, people like that, and Alice Bailey's husband, I forget his name, but he was a 33rd degree Freemason, okay? So I did some digging into this company, and I realized that they were phenomenally connected to the United Nations. Like, their location used to be 666 United Nations Plaza, and they moved it to 668 United Nations Plaza recently, as if it wasn't obvious what they were doing. But on the actual website, you can go and see this yourself. There's a tab that says Support of the United Nations. This organization is the United Nations spiritual and philosophical backbone. They have a meditation room within the United Nations where people go and pray to Lucifer, and they do their meditations, and it's everything that the New Age encompasses. Everything that's not the real Jesus Christ, you're okay, you're fine. That's what Satan wants you doing. Okay, so, and it was in the 60s when this organization, Lucius Trust, was sending out publications and what do they call it, pamphlets to households about this upcoming new age of enlightenment, the new age of Aquarius. So when you hear people talking about these things, they don't know the origins of these. And so God showed me the origins of all of this. And I realized that I was eating right out of the government's hand, and I don't trust the government. I've never trusted the government, and I don't think you should either. I mean, look at what they do to their people. But anyway, there was one more thing I wanted to mention about that. Oh, yeah. And so Lucius Trust, it says right on their website, they used to be called Lucifer's Publishing Company. And so all of those books that they told me to read and everything that I was into and the Seth books and all of that, all those teachings, the law of attraction, all of that stuff is rooted in Luciferianism. And it's all there, it's all on the website. You can go and check it out right now. And I had some crazy stuff happen right after I posted this testimony that I'm going to get to in a second. But yeah, I did some digging, and they're openly Luciferian and Freemason. They were began by Freemasons, and yeah, they're just an evil, evil, evil corporation. And when you read everything that they want you studying, it's all of this new age light worker, indigo, child, starseed stuff, okay? So go and do some research. So I bawled and I gave my life to the real Jesus right then and there. Like, I had a montage of, you know, going to the store and seeing Time magazine with chakras on the cover, and, you know, the piezoelectricity of crystals on the cover of the Smithsonian or whatever, and just how it's all being pushed on us. And I know not to trust the mainstream. So if you're not going to trust the mainstream, who's the complete opposite? Like I said in my other testimony, whose name do they blaspheme in every single movie? Who do they try to make look terrible in music and movies and everything? It's always Jesus. Jesus Christ from the Bible is the only spiritual leader that the devil in this world does not want you paying any attention to, and that for me was enough proof that he was the one. 100% he was the one. So on January 7th, I gave my life to him. I bawled my eyes out. I almost puked. I said, I am so sorry. Like, I prayed to you when my mom died, and this was 5 years later. And I lost it, but he knew that I would, because he knew where I was coming from with that, and he knew that I didn't have any positive experiences with Christians. So he knew, and he guided me through everything that he wanted me to learn. Like, I was studying alchemy and all sorts of crazy stuff, and he wanted me to understand that so that I could communicate these things with people who are still stuck in that, because nobody knows the origins of all of that stuff. They don't realize that it's coming straight from the United Nations. And I don't care who you are, if you think the United Nations, who are planning to depopulate the planet to down, what did the Georgia Guidestones say? To under 500 million, to 500 million, to keep in perpetual balance with nature. Like, the Georgia Guidestones were put up by the United Nations explaining exactly what they were planning to do, and they were just shot down by some laser beam last year or something. But anyway, I don't trust that stuff, and so as soon as I learned that that's what I was following and I was doing exactly what the government wanted me to do, I knew that I was on the wrong path. So I bawled my eyes out to God and I asked, what do I do? First thing he said was, get rid of everything I have that's occultic. So I did. I put it all in a box and brought it all to the dump. Every book, everything. I got a Bible that I had off the shelf. It was a Good News Bible. Started reading that. But that day I looked up, he told me to go onto YouTube. I went onto YouTube. What's the very first video that was recommended on my page? Doreen Virtue gives her life. This was on January 7th of 2020. And I saw a video that said Doreen Virtue, the goddess of tarot and the New Age, gives her life to Jesus Christ on January 7th. I think it was the year before. And she stopped making tarot cards, she stopped publishing her books, she started living an extremely humble life, and she explained how she got a study Bible, and she totally gave me my next steps. And I was just like, oh my gosh, Lord, you are so good. You are so understanding. Oh, I get chills just thinking about it. So yeah, that was in 2020, the year of clear seeing. And God told me that 2020 would be the year of clear seeing too. I just didn't realize it would be so soon. But anyway, I bought an NIV study Bible. It was like $80 and it's massive. I still have it. It's like really big and it's awesome. And so I just started studying that and got rid of everything else. And that's when I became an official Christian. So everything changed for me overnight. Again, God told me that I had to leave my partner and that I didn't have to worry about his health because all of his problems were caused by demons and he'd be fine once he left. And that was true. As soon as I left, he called me a couple weeks later and he was like, "Guess what? I've never felt better since you've been gone." But anyway, so I created an ad online seeking a female Christian roommate when I was still living with him. And this is what I call my exodus and the splitting of my Red Sea, because I honestly believed before all of this that my ex at the time might have killed me if I left him, or something bad would have happened. Like, I tried to leave him once and he threatened to put posters everywhere of my face and my number saying I was a prostitute. So I was in fear of something happening, you know? I didn't know what, and after that long, I didn't know if he was going to kill me or what. But that's why I call this the splitting of my Red Sea. I was working at a beautiful 5-star resort at the time, and my boss very generously allowed me to stay there as long as I needed, completely for free. And this was like $300 a night rooms, like super nice place. The very same day that I broke up with him and posted that ad, I got a phone call. But right before all of this, about a week prior, God had warned me that something was going to happen to safely release me from my ex. So what happened was, hold on, I got the lyrics here. I had this song stuck in my head for weeks, and I had never heard this on the radio before. It was just a song that I liked, and it was stuck in my head. And I mean, like, when I'd wake up in the morning, it was pounding in my head, and when I'd go to sleep, I couldn't get it out of my head. And about a week before I left my ex, I got into his truck. He picked me up somewhere, and the radio was off, and I got the urge to turn it on, and what song comes on? The song that was stuck in my head. So I knew God was trying to tell me something, and I just felt this electric surge like all the way through my body. And the reason I'm including these things is because I want to explain and help other people to understand how God communicates with us, okay? So these are some examples from my own life of how he's communicated with me. And so the song was Are You Ready by Disturbed. These are the lyrics. Well, are you ready now for the revolution? For too long now your power has been taken away. It's been taken away. Does your heart feel heavy now? Savor the solution. Take those mental shackles off and throw them away. You've got to get them out of your mind. Don't you let their vision leave you blind. Moving steady now. It's a revelation. For so long your focus has been taken away. Now you're breaking away. They may think they know you, but here's an education. No, they can't control you. Once you've broken away, they're done patrolling your mind. So it's about Alan. Sorry, I shouldn't have said his name. And his demons. That's my ex's name. When they're searching for you, they will find a force they aren't ready for. Are you ready? They aren't ready for you to be strong. Are you ready? They aren't ready for you to prove them wrong. They aren't ready for you to be turned into someone who cannot be preyed upon. Okay, so that song, when it played, I just felt like the Holy Spirit was shaking me, vibrating me. And I was like, okay, so something big is about to happen. Oh yeah, and then there was another song that came on, and this was the night that I went to the or not to the hospital. This was the night that I went to the hotel for the first time. I said I received a phone call. I'm getting to that. But the night that I went to the hotel and I left my partner, this song came on first thing in the morning. Oh my goodness. I have something else I have to tell you that I totally forgot about. But this was the song that came on the night after I left my partner. Not a soul on the road, not a star in the sky. It's a desert in my heart, and I know where to hide. I'm your king of nothing at all, and you're my queen of nothing at all. Well, out here in the dust, if you don't have trust, ain't nothing left of us. This is the Exodus. They're just testing us. They can't flex with us. They can't mess with us. They can't mess with us. So that's from One Foot by Walk the Moon. And what I wanted to share, I didn't actually write this down, I can't believe I didn't write this down, was that night that I left Al, I packed 2 bags, I gave up my home, my 2 cats, and I had actually lost my job because I was evangelizing to everybody, but my boss still let me stay there because I had worked there for like 3 years, and she knew me, and she liked me, and she cared about me, and so she let me stay there. But the night that I got away from my partner, I got down on my knees and I was bawling my eyes out. And I said, God, I'm all yours now. I've given up literally everything. I have absolutely nothing left to give you. And I need some sort of proof that you are who you say you are. So this all happened. Actually, this was November 7th. So a couple months went by before I ended up leaving Al. But let me see if I can find this because I have it in my phone. I want to show it to you. I don't just want you to take my word for it because this is a very unbelievable thing. But I begged God for proof. Please, God, what is your name? I want to know your name. Please just tell me. I was expecting a vision or something. I don't know what I was expecting. Just something. Okay, found it. And right at that moment, I was on my knees bawling my eyes out, and I said, please, please, like, I'm so tired of searching. I'm so tired of looking. Can you please just tell me your name so that I can be sure? From now on, I've given you everything. And my phone rang. It was a text. I said, I'm sorry. The Holy Spirit said, it's okay, go look. The text that came through was from my friend's phone, and all it said is, I am. So I had texted her earlier. She asked me how things were going. I said, it's pretty nice, actually. I sure like the hot tub, haha. And yes, my goodness, what an angel. My boss for letting me stay. I hope all is going well with you, even though you're so busy. And she goes, I am. And then she says, thank you, yes, I've been working, but even though I bitch sometimes, I enjoy it, lol. I didn't type I am, lol. How are you feeling, really? I didn't type I am. What does Yahweh mean? I am. Yeah, sorry. That was one of the greatest moments in my whole entire life. And that person never spoke to me again because I told her what happened and she didn't believe me. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, in Exodus, during my Exodus, Moses is speaking to God, and he asks him, who am I to say sent me? Oh, come on, phone. Here, I'll just read it to you. Bear with me. So this is where he was at the burning bush. When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, First, I want to say, when they said I am, when I got that text, I didn't know what that meant. I had never read this before. And the Holy Spirit said, go and look up what I tell Moses my name is in the Bible. Or, no, sorry. He said, go and look what I say my name is in the Bible. So I just looked up, what does God say his name is in the Bible? And this is the verse that came up. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am so concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the Egyptians who were oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And God said, I will be with you, and this is the sign that it is I that have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship them on this mountain. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What then shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. So he could not have answered that any more clearly. He sent me a text. So, that was the most incredible thing that has ever happened in my life. And no one will ever take that away from me. No one, no matter what, will ever convince me that God is not God and that God is not who he says he is, because he told me straight up. And later I had someone explain that God spoke to Moses the way that he spoke to his friends. And why did he send me a text? Because who do you text? You text your friends. So yeah, that's like, just absolutely heart-numbingly beautiful. Oh, sorry, I gotta go back to where I was now on my notes. Okay, so anyway, the man who called, I found out the next day, was actually a human trafficker. I had told my ex what had happened, and he couldn't sleep that night. So, being an ex-biker, he knew exactly what the signs were to look for, and what I had told him had happened was that he had called me. He had said he said he was from New Brunswick. He had a New Brunswick number. He said that he was going to send me money. He just wanted to video chat and make sure I was legit, and so I did, naively, and I could hear him taking pictures of me the whole time, but I didn't realize that's what the noise was, like screenshotting it. And so I ended up telling my ex about this, and he couldn't sleep all that night. And I ended up shaving my head completely. My hair is just now getting back to the length that it was when I shaved it, but I shaved my head completely because God told me that my ex wouldn't be attracted to me anymore if I did. So I shaved my head completely, and I was just like this scrawny little wreck. I was like 120 pounds from not eating and from all the stress of everything that had gone on. And so Al called me and he was like, listen, I'm not attracted to you anymore, but you need protection, and you don't deserve what's coming to you if this is what I fear it is. And so I told him, everything that happened, and he told me to come home and just live in the basement, and he would take care of me and just make sure that, I was at least safe. And I want to mention, at all of this is when COVID hit. So I actually was on EI, and I was getting COVID pay for all of this, throughout all of this, and for like a year and a half, which is really sweet. But anyway, so our fears were proven correct after I left a key card on my hotel room table when I went for a walk the next day. My ex called me in a panic because somehow someone got it from my locked room and put it in the front door of our house. He came to pick me up right away, and I stayed in the basement for the next 6 months, during which I had 6 different men continuously harass and attempt to kidnap me. I didn't notice all the 6s in this. That's funny. During this time, I started attending a local church. I met a woman there who were one of the only people who actually believed what was happening to us, and she told me about an amazing Bible college she worked at for 20 years, and how God just instructed this particular base. It's a YWAM base, so most people know YWAM, Youth with a Mission. But this particular base, God told them to stop asking their students to pay fees for their courses. So I ended up going there and getting like how much? Like a $14,000 education completely for free, which is unreal. But she ended up telling me that the Lord had told her that she was going to go and she was going to take me and she was going to teach my class so that I would feel safe and that I would not feel so out of it and alone, and I'm a brand new Christian, I don't know how to act, or at least I had somebody there, right? So she ended up taking me there, and shortly after arriving, the human traffickers drove an SUV through the front door of the building. And this is not a big building, like this is a small, like the size of some people's houses, like an upper middle class house. Like it was a small building. And they did that because I had just called my dad the day before and told him everything, and they were listening to my phone. They had my phones tapped, they had pictures, they were watching me through my iPad cameras. They called me and described what I looked like naked. Like it was just awful. Everything that they were doing was awful, but I'm not going to get into all of that because it's about what God had done, not about what they had done. So when they ended up driving the vehicle through the front doors, there were cops outside when I woke up, and I was like, no, I'm not going back to the cops, because I went to the cops here in my hometown and they didn't even take a statement. Like they didn't believe me at all, and neither did my doctor, but that's something I'll get to in a second. But anyways, these cops believed me and they made 3 arrests within 24 hours. And when I prayed and asked God, what he wanted me to do, he just said, let me fight for you. Just forget about it and just focus on your courses and just enjoy this time that I have set apart for you. So that was the end of it. And I ended up finding out about 2 weeks later, my ex called me, and he was an ex-biker, right? So what ended up happening was his ex-boss and the biker gang that came after me, I'm not going to drop their name, I do know what they're called, but their boss met up with his old boss and found out that someone was targeting a biker's family member, and so they all got the shit kicked out of them or something. They got dealt with. I don't know, but that's how I got set free. It was his acquaintance and affiliation with these guys that got me set free. So, whoa, crazy. Like, what a crazy story. I can't even fathom. I can't even explain to you. Like, who could write this? I couldn't make this up. Trust me. This is true. All of this actually happened. Only God could write a story like this. So, anyway, I wanted to tell you what the cops and the doctors said. So, well, the cops just didn't take a statement. They just didn't believe me at all. But so I tried to go to the doctor, and I hadn't been to a doctor in like 10 years because, like I said, I stopped taking medications and just depended on the Lord for everything. So I went to a doctor and I tried to explain to her what happened, hoping that they would have some sort of resources or something for this sort of thing. And she called me one morning at 9 a.m. and she was like, just so you know, I don't think you need help in this regard. I think you're completely delusional. And I was so defeated, and I just like screamed into my pillow, and I was so overwhelmed. But the point was God was showing me that I couldn't trust in mortal man. I can only trust in him. And I learned that full 100%. Like, he was the one who orchestrated it, and he orchestrated it to get me out of my my Egypt and into my land flowing with milk and honey, and he orchestrated everything. Like, no human could have done what he did for me. But she ended up calling me delusional, and that morning was my birthday. Or no, it was around my birthday. I remember that, and I remember I was listening to a devotional that I had at the time called Precious Daughter, and that day, as I was bawling my eyes out, the Lord said, listen to your devotional. And so I put on my devotional, and it said something along the lines of, Precious daughter, You live in a world where people would most likely, or sorry, precious daughter, you live in a world where people would much more rather ignore the actual problems that they have to face than acknowledge the reality of the evil that's present basically in the world. And that, precious daughter, is the delusion. Oh my goodness, oh, my heart just sang and sang and sang. So yeah, that was really cool. But yeah, he was there for me throughout all of it. There wasn't a single thing that he did not defend me or encourage me or, um, what's the word? Yeah, encourage me. And like, there wasn't a single thing that happened where he didn't warn me beforehand what was gonna happen, and where he didn't tell me what to do about it, and where he didn't answer a prayer that I had during this whole entire thing. Like, there was one day where I thought we were gonna die because they called us and they told us that they knew where my dad was living, they knew where my family lived, they knew where my partner's family lived, and that they were gonna kill all of us. And I was absolutely terrified. And there was a song that came on my iPad right away, and it was, oh no, sorry. I thought we were gonna die, and it was on my birthday. This one was my birthday one. I had two different devotionals, the Precious Daughter DVD or audio CD, and an Exodus book, and you can look at it. It's either March 18th or March 19th if you have the Exodus devotional, and it says God will fight for you. Both of them said God would fight for you, and I need only to stay still, and he would bring the deliverance of the Lord, and I would never have to see the Egyptians I see today again. And oh my gosh, like he answered everything. You know, there was nothing that happened that he let me just wonder or worry about. He was there through all of it. And there was this one other day that I was super worried that I was gonna get raped or like kidnapped. And a song came on my iPad by my favorite band, and I never noticed the lyrics before. My favorite band is Live, and they're like a 90s grunge band, and they have a song called Selling the Drama. And this was as I'm praying, I just had music playing in the background. Am I gonna be raped? And this song comes on and it goes, no, we will not be raped. No, we will not be harmed like that, I think they say. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Like, what? How is that even possible? You know, just absolutely amazing. Um, so yeah, he speaks to me a lot through music, obviously. But moving on, that's how that all ended. Yeah, so in total, my affair with the traffickers lasted 6 months, but it brought the Lord and I closer than I ever could have dreamed. He warned me beforehand of every attempt made on my life and proved himself to be completely trustworthy whenever he spoke. So, more time. Oh yeah, that's another song. When I had when I had them after me, there was one time, like, we were fighting all the time because he was like, you and your stupid faith, your God isn't gonna protect you, all you have is me. And I was like, God is gonna protect me, you know, regardless of you or not. And I was grateful, trust me. This redeemed our whole relationship. Like, we had an awful relationship. He, at the beginning of our relationship, beat me half to death numerous times. Like, it was awful. He almost killed me quite a few times, but he ended up quitting drinking because it was the alcohol that made him do that. And so but then he ended up becoming very emotionally and mentally abusive. But it was through all of this that God redeemed all of that, and me and him actually had the closest relationship that I've had with any of my exes, even though it was the worst relationship I've ever had. Um, because of all of this. So God redeemed all of that, and it's a shame, and I hate to say this, but he actually passed away on a work accident earlier on this year in March, which is really sad. But I hope and pray that he is in heaven, and I'm sure that he is, because about 2 days before he died, God had me praying for him really, really hard. And so I have that as a feeling that, yeah, that's a confirmation that my prayers would be answered, because I've been praying for him for a long time. But anyway, there was a one time when I was absolutely devastated. We were fighting and I just ran downstairs, and this was before I knew I was going away to school or anything. But the traffickers were after me, and my iPad just started playing a song. randomly. And this was the lyrics to the song. It's More Time by Need to Breathe. I promised you the world again, everything within my hands. All the riches one could dream, they will come from me. I hope that you could understand that this is not what I had planned. Please don't worry now, it will turn around. Because I need more time, just a few more months and we'll be fine. So say what's on your mind, because I can't figure out what's inside. I hope that you could understand that this was not what I had planned. Please don't worry now, it will turn around. Because I need more time, just a few more months, and we'll be fine. We're off to new lands, so hold on to my hands. It's gonna be alright. It's a whole lot brighter, so stand by the fire. Yes, it's gonna be alright. Yeah, the road gets harder, but it's not much farther. It's gonna be alright. You know that it ain't easy. Please believe me, it's gonna be alright. Please don't worry now, because it will turn around. Yeah. So, anyway, I ended up going away to YWAM and I attended 2 courses. One was called a discipleship training school, and that one I believe is usually like $7,000 or $8,000. And then I attended the School of Biblical Studies right after, which is where you study every book in the Bible 5 times over the course of 9 months. You have no time to eat, sleep, breathe, exercise, nothing. You are just 100% in the Bible. And it was the best time of my entire life. And all of it was completely for free except for my outreach. So at the end of my first course, we went on a mission trip, and 3 of us didn't have any money to go on outreach, and we needed that, but that wasn't like fees for the course, so you could get into the course without having that because they just trusted God would provide. And so someone in the course had a Bitcoin account, and they ended up depositing $200 into 3 accounts for the 3 of us, and within 2 weeks they all hit $4,000, and we needed 350 or $3,500 each. So that was pretty crazy. Yeah, and I just want to share a couple other stories from that time at YWAM, at Youth with a Mission, because if anyone can afford to go there, please go. It is so worth it, but find a good one because it's decentralized, and I don't know. The one that I went to was the best as far as I'm concerned. The teachers were amazing. We experienced miracles on a daily basis. And like I said, it's the only one in the world that's free. And there are like thousands of these YWAM locations. It's the biggest missionary organization in the world. So there was another time that the whole base needed $12,000 in order to pay our bills so that the hydro and everything wouldn't get cut off, and we received 3 different donations on that day, amounting to $12,000. That was absolutely crazy. There's a lot of miracles that happened there. But needless to say, I have been unfathomably blessed. Following school, my same friend who took me there ended up bringing me home to stay at her place until I met my husband. So when I was in school, I was going to get this out to show you, but during my Song of Solomon assignment, the Lord put it on my heart to draw and write about my perfect husband. And so I drew a little sketch because I'm a portrait artist, and I wrote Brandon Lee, someone who looks like Brandon Lee, who's Bruce Lee's son. But anyway, I ended up meeting this man as soon as I got home through my friend who came to the school with me, and she met a woman, and it was her son, and his name was Brandon, and yeah, we fell in love, and we ended up getting married. Unfortunately, that's not a happy ending. He was not ready for marriage, and so he ended up leaving me in a hospital bed 14 months later on Valentine's Day. He ended up calling me and just telling me that he wasn't ready. He had never had a girlfriend before. He had never been in a relationship or lived on his own or paid bills or anything before, and I had been on my own forever. So we were just in 2 like completely opposite phases of our life, and he wasn't ready or equipped for the spiritual warfare that came as a result of being in a wedded holy union, I guess. So he ended up breaking my heart pretty bad, and that was earlier this year, Valentine's Day of 2024. So, yeah, this past year has been the hardest year of my life, I would say. Maybe not as hard as losing my mom, but at least with my mom I had God. Like, I had realized God at the exact same time, and so that was all fresh and new and exciting, and it off, you know, off balance the pain a little bit. That's not the right word, whatever. Um, but anyway, this last year has been really, really, really hard, and so I ended up having to rely on friends for 5 months, couch surfing and just moving around and living with people that I knew. One of them only had a 1 bedroom apartment, and she let me have the bedroom. Like, just amazing, amazing, amazing people. And then eventually I posted an ad, and a guy got back to me, and his name was Jonas, and he and I have been together for 6 months now, and we are incredibly happy, and it's the best relationship I have ever had. And he has put up with so much from me because I have so much trauma that I'm going through. Shortly before my ex-husband left me, I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, so that's not much fun. And I think that was a big reason why he left, because of the stigma and everything attached to that. So he ended up just doing some research on it and realizing that he couldn't handle that for the rest of his life. But this man is older and more mature, and well, we've both made mistakes, but it's it's been the happiest and most blessed and most peaceful relationship that I've ever had. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And I had no idea that that's how the end of this year would go. And when we first met, he picked me up and brought me over to his house because I was looking for a place. That's how I met him. And I think it's weird that God led me to him. No one else had a place. I had no other options. I had to be out of my place that I was with, or that I was in, like, that the end of the month. This is the only option that came up. I had nowhere else to go. Or I'm sorry, I did actually have somewhere else to go. But anyway, I chose this one, and we've been madly in love ever since. And he's just gave his life to Jesus about a week or two ago. He prayed with me, gave his life to the Lord. And yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to be living with someone I'm in a relationship with, but so far it's been amazing, and I mean, it's only brought him closer to Jesus, so I can't really see how that's a bad thing. But yeah, he's the best thing that's ever happened to me so far, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful. But anyway, that's my story so far, anyway, and that's about all that I wanted to share regarding my testimony. There are some other stories that I would like to share, and I'm also working on a book. It's like kind of in the style of Chicken Soup for the Soul, but it's a composite of miracles from my own life and from the lives of people in my life and from your life. If you would like to be a part of it, then just please comment, and I'll send you my information, and we'll talk, and I'll put your story or stories into my book. If you have anything that you would like to share, you can have your name, or it can be anonymous. But yeah, it's gonna have paintings and stuff in it because I'm an artist. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask. There's a couple things that I wanted to include, just random miracles that didn't really fit into the story. One of them was Pepper. I had mentioned my cat Pepper, who had sprayed everywhere when I was younger, and I had him since I was 14, and yeah, he was everything to me. But he ended up dying one night. I remember I came home from my Reiki sessions, so this was before I even found Jesus for real. And I remember I was just bawling outside because my ex didn't allow him in the house, and so he had to live in my neighbor's barn. And it was November, it was starting to get really cold, and I just started to cry, and I just said, God, I know he has a spraying problem. He's ruined every place I've ever lived. If he can't live with me, then please just take him home. And I had no reason to believe that he was sick or anything. he was perfectly fine as far as I knew, but the very next day I went down to check on him and to feed him and cuddle him, and he was bleeding all over. And I grabbed him and I brought him up to the house and I screamed, "Al, let's go, we have to go to the vet." And he ended up taking me to the vet, and we found out he had a tumor in his mouth that had ruptured that night. But that night that had happened, I had a dream where an angel came to see me, and the angel, this was the dream. I got into the back seat of a cab, and an angel who looks like a typical angel that you see, like with shoulder length, blonde, wavy hair. He had sunglasses on, and he looks in the rear view mirror, and he took his sunglasses off, and he says, I don't know why he said this, but he said, "We are as real as the butterflies and the rainbows in the skies. All you have to do is believe, and you will see us." And instantly I woke up, and his name, Zadkiel, was screaming in my head. Zadkiel, 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 Zadkiel. And it wasn't actually until very recently when I looked up what that meant, and it means angel of mercy. And so that was the morning of me finding my cat and him passing away. But when we ended up getting home from the vet, I just sat down on the couch bawling my eyes out, and The Simpsons was on. It was still playing from earlier. And Santa's little helper, their dog, was laying on the operating table, and his spirit left the body and flew up to heaven's gates, and there was a little doggy door on heaven's gates, and that was pretty special. So yeah, that was a really cool one. Another one that I wanted to share was when I first got to college, I felt so out of place. Like I was like, I'm this like sort of punkish looking, tomboyish, not really like your typical Christian. I'm covered in tattoos and stuff. Wait, where's my other one? Oh, up there. And I went with a lot of demons, and so when we were all sharing our testimonies, it was like the first week, and I was sharing my testimony, and my leader just put his hand on my head and he started praying for deliverance for me, which was totally fine, but he was praying really like intensely and like kind of being mean to me. And then when he prayed over other people, he wasn't like that, and so I got super offended, and because he was being so gentle with the other people and he wasn't being gentle at all with me, and he literally like knocked me down to the ground and was praying that this demon would leave, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I just got up afterwards and I ran to my room, and no one was in there. Everyone was outside at the campfire. No one had been inside for hours. And I got into the room and I just sat down and I cried and I said, "God, do you love me? Like, why did you bring me here if I'm just going to be outcasted here as well?" Which I didn't end up being for the rest of it, but I ended up bawling my eyes out. And about a minute after I got into my room, my friend's iPad, which was sitting closed on the table, just started playing a song randomly, and it was the song "I Love You Always Forever, Near and Far, Closer Together, Everywhere I Will Be With You, Everything I Will Do For You," and it just looped the chorus over and over and over again. And then a couple minutes later, my roommate walked in to check on me, and I was like, "Look at what your iPad's doing." And she was like, "Oh, well, were you using it?" And I was like, "No, we just started playing that." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, Jordan." She was from Spain. She's like, "That is so cool." And then she opened it, and I guess it was Instagram. It was some Instagram feed that just happened to turn on while I needed it. So just little things like that. And then there was another night. These were the things that I had to wait till I actually found Jesus before they started happening. I had an extremely bad period my whole entire life, and it was in March of 2020 when I was praying to God because my cramps were so bad. They've always been bad. I've always bled like 3 weeks out of the month, pretty much. And I just remember bawling my eyes out and saying, "I can't live like this. Can you please heal me? Because I can't take this anymore. I can't." survive through this for the rest of my life. And God told me if I stopped sleeping with my partner, that He would heal it. And I said, was this a punishment? And He said, no, this was a safety precaution. Because I had been abused ever since I was an infant and sexually molested more times than you can count on both hands. And so being that, or not being that, but having gone through that, it's very hard to say no, right? And so that was His safety guard for me. And it was exactly like the girl in Luke 7, I believe, who had the issue of blood and touched the garment of Jesus and was completely healed. Yeah, that was pretty cool too. Another one. Oh yeah, this was cool. This was really cool. So I was in college and I had watched some sermons. It was my day off or something, and I decided to watch some sermons, even though we weren't supposed to watch anything or do anything other than read the Bible. And I didn't realize that they were Calvinists, and basically what they were explaining was that anyone who thinks that the Lord, his name was Vadi Balcom, I don't know how to say it, but he said that basically anyone who thinks the Lord speaks any way outside of His word is basically a Luciferian and a Satanist, and it just absolutely broke me because I have all these experiences of the Lord speaking to me, and ones of Him just speaking directly to me. Like, He talks to me all the time. Whenever I talk to Him, He talks back in one way or another, whether it's through a song or something I read or whether He just tells me the answer. But he ended up, I ended up watching that and just being completely heartbroken. He said that basically anybody who thinks that is a heathen, and because God's word is sufficient and God doesn't need to speak to us on our own terms, and basically that it's witchcraft that if we believe that. And I was just so confused and so depressed. And then I realized later I looked him up and realized he was a Calvinist and they don't believe in that. And I was like, okay, well, they're just missing out. They're just missing out. Like, I don't know what else to say. But it really hurt me at the time, and I was really exhausted from my schoolwork. And so God told me to go for a walk. So I got up, and oh yes, and I'd also been praying about a whole bunch of things that day. Like, what does He want me to do with my art? And He had given me an idea to do, basically make cards for people with scriptures on them and paint, watercolor. And I was asking Him about an issue I was having with somebody. Not an issue, but there was something going on with somebody there, and I didn't know how to face it or deal with it. So basically I was asking Him these questions, right? And then He told me to go for this walk, and there were these people outside. And the YWAM base that I went to was in Turner Valley. I'm going to tell you guys that so you can look into it yourself, so you can understand this isn't a big place. It's small, and anyone can go there. They get people there from all around the world. It's amazing. Go if you get a chance. Please go. The teachers of the Harvest Discipleship Training School are the best. But anyway, this was during my School of Biblical Studies, and I ended up going outside, and there was a group of people, and they just kind of ambushed me, and I wasn't in the mood. But it was weird to see people that weren't from the school there, because we were really out in the middle of nowhere in a beautiful property by a river, and it was awesome. But these people came up to me and started talking to me, and they introduced themselves, and they were a prayer group that God had sent to talk to two people at this YWAM, and they were from like 2 hours away. And one of the ladies came up to me and she gave me the biggest hug, and she started answering every single question that I asked God that day in my head. She answered every single prayer. She said, He is so proud of you for the way that you're dealing with this situation with this person. Don't get down on yourself. He will continue to talk to you, like He is always there, always talking. He is never gonna stop talking to you. Don't let anybody tell you different. Just everything that I had been praying about. And then all of a sudden, the one lady, when this one was done prophesying over me, another lady was like, are you an artist? And I was like, I am. I paint portraits. And so she gestured for this he was like a teenager, to go to the car, and he ran to the car, and when he came back, he was carrying a whole bunch of acrylic paints and paintbrushes and stuff. And God had literally told them to bring these art supplies for me, and God had told them that oh yes, and she said this. She, like, literally, I said nothing. They just handed me the art supplies, and I was like, seriously, thank you so much. And she was like, you need to start making your art cards, she says. And then I went back in later, and a friend of mine came over, and I told her what happened, and she was like, art cards. I knew I grabbed these for some reason, and so I guess at the front desk they had all these different cards with scriptures and paintings on them, well, pictures, and she grabbed them, and she didn't know why, and she gave them to me, and she was like, you were the one that I was supposed to grab these for. This is inspiration for you. So yeah, just really, really cool stuff like that. Oh, I could go on forever, but that's why I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book, and so far I have about 90 or 90 something miracles written in it, akin to what I've shared here. I do want to share one more big one though, because this one was really quite crazy. So at the end of our first course at Youth with a Mission, we went on a mission trip, and because I wasn't vaccinated, just gonna leave that there, we couldn't go outside of the country, but we ended up going all around BC. So, if you don't know what BC is, don't worry, you don't need to know. But we ended up going all around BC, and we were in a town called Nanaimo. And, well, actually, there were three massive things that happened. There was one guy that we prayed over, who we prayed for his feet, and he had told us that he was dying of liver disease, basically, from alcoholism, and his feet didn't get healed, but he ended up texting me 2 weeks later saying that he saw his doctor and his liver was completely healed, and he had absolutely no problems with it at all. And that was amazing. And then there was another guy that me and my friends were just walking down the street. It was like 10 p.m. and he was like hunched over completely at like a 90-degree angle, and we prayed for him, and he said he was a Christian, but God completely humbled him. He was a multi-millionaire. He was like an oil mogul and made like millions of dollars, but he got cocky and lost it all. And he said himself he was like Nebuchadnezzar, and God had sent him, out to the streets. Now he was homeless. He had a broken hip, broken back. We prayed over him, and 2 days later we ended up going to feed the homeless at a homeless shelter, and he was there, and he was perfectly up straight. His name was Andy. So that was pretty amazing. But the biggest one that happened, we were also in Nanaimo at the time. We were only there for like a week, and so much happened. It was so cool. But one night God said, let's go for a walk. I said, okay, let's go for a walk. And so I just got up and started walking, and God said, let's find some water, like a lake or something. I was like, okay. And then instantly I saw two guys out in their yard, and I asked them, do you guys have any water? They said, what kind of water? Or I asked, do you know if there's any water around? And they were like, what kind of water? Drinking water or swimming water? And I was like, swimming water. And they're like, yeah, it's quite a ways away though, but just go down here, take a left at this sign, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, thanks. They were like, you sure you don't want no drinking water for that walk? I'm like, no, I'm good. So I ended up walking, and I ended up coming across this memorial, and it was all lit up. Like, it was huge. It was the size of this bed I'm sitting on, with pictures and toys, and I had read, and a lit candle, and I had read that it was where a young 18-year-old man had died, and I teared up because of how beautiful this memorial was, and it just hit me so hard. Like, he had died in a car wreck right there, and it was 6 months prior, and I was like, wow, that's crazy that I would see that right now. And so I ended up seeing the sign where they said to turn, so I turned and I went to this beautiful lake. It had a little plane and everything sitting on it. Oh, that leads me to another one, my last one, about planes. But I just sat there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I decided to get up, and I had walked for about 2 hours, and I decided to walk back. And as I was walking back to the end of the street, I I heard a party going on, and I noticed the sign, and it said it was the celebration of life for that young man who had died 6 months prior. And so I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? This is obviously what you want me to do, and I don't know what you want me to do, Lord. So um, I closed my eyes. I said, is there something you want me to do here? And he gave me a vision of a young man with no shirt on and something white wrapped around his hand, like it looked like he had a broken hand or something, a cast. And I was like, okay. So I said to the Lord, if you want me to go in there, then don't let me leave. So I walked away, and God said, what if this is your answer to what if this is an answer to your prayer of wanting to know me like you've never known me before? And I was like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. But I want 3 confirmations, Lord, because I'm not gonna go in there because I could get arrested or beat up. I don't know. And then, so the second time I walked away, he said, what if this is your way of seeing me like you've never seen me in action before? And I was like, okay, yeah, I want to see that. And then the third one, what was the third one? When I tried to walk away, oh yeah, it was, thank you, Holy Spirit. What if by you walking away, someone's life will be ruined forever by your disobedience? And that one hit me. And I was like, okay, but I can't go in there on my own. And God said, you're right. Call your team. So I called my team, and 4 of them came, and we were praying for a way in. And this guy ended up coming in and parking right where the party was going on. And my leader, Sonal is his name, he got out and he said, hey man, we're Christians, and one of our students was just led to this house. Like, do you know the people here? Is there any way we could go in and talk to them? And they said, yeah man, they're Christians too. Tell them Seth let you in. And so we were like, perfect, we got an opening. So we just walked in, and these 2 guys were sitting there super drunk, and it was like, we didn't even have to say anything. They just said, the owner of the house is right there. And they pointed, and there was this young guy with kind of like an entourage around him. And it was the guy that God had given me a vision of, and it was his shirt. He had a white t-shirt wrapped around his hand, and he, I guess, was the brother of the young man who had died. So God gave me a verse for them, and Sonal, our leader, just explained, like, listen, this young lady just walked 2 hours to your house because God wants a message, or has a message for you all. And the guy said, basically, he just, like, instantly, like, was super serious, and he was like, telling people, go get everyone out of the house, go get the rest of the family, get the family in the house, like organizing everybody. And so he was like, come on. And he invited us in, and we just kind of waited there for everyone who was a part of the family to come in. There was 10 people. The youngest one, I think, was 7, and the oldest one was like 50 something. And Sonal just said, okay, Jordan, that's my real name, go ahead and talk. And so I ended up telling them that I had walked all that way, and that I had quoted a verse, and the gentleman who let us in had finished the verse, and he said that right before his brother died, that he had quoted that verse to him, and he had came to the Lord right before his passing, and so had their father. And so this was a family that God had been after for a very, very long time. And it turns out we weren't actually the only people that God had sent to talk to them in this way. It had happened once before, where just some random person was sent to talk to their father, and that was before his passing. And we ended up meeting the whole family, and everybody lined up and gave their life to Jesus right then and there. And the young boy, even he did. And we ended up talking to the mother, who was homeless. She was a drug addict. She was in an extremely abusive relationship. She just so happened to be there for the celebration of life that night. But we prayed over her, and we prayed deliverance over her, and I still have her on Facebook to this day. And ever since that day, her life has completely been transformed. 100%. She's gotten her kids back. She's gotten off the drugs. She's following Jesus full-heartedly. I think she became a hairdresser, like her whole entire life changed. So as far as I know, that was the person whose life was changed by me going in there. But yeah, I really want people to understand that when you're close to the Lord, these are the things that He drives you to do. And I have not once been embarrassed. Well, I shouldn't say that. There have been times when I have said the wrong thing and I've been embarrassed because I was arrogant or prideful. But I have seen, I would say 9 out of 10 times that the Lord has told me to talk to someone, it has turned out beautifully, beautifully well. And then the 1 out of 10, it's like, whatever, you tried. Someone else will get through to them at a different time. But anyway, I'm freezing, and I'm excited. That's why I've been shaking. But anyway, it's really cold in the room I'm in right now. But I just want to sit here and pray with anybody who might have a desire to give your heart to the Lord right now. I would encourage you to, because your life will never be the same afterwards, for the better. No matter what trials may come your way, it's only testing and trying your faith, and you will come forth as gold. So I ask that you please pray for me, or pray with me, pray for me too. I need lots of prayer, but I just want to pray with everyone right now who hasn't given their life to the Lord and would like to. Hi, Jesus. I love you so much. I just ask right now, Lord God, that you envelop anyone who has any interest in giving their life to you. And I pray that they feel the presence of your Holy Spirit, and I pray that your Holy Spirit will guide them straight to your heart, just like you guided me. And I pray, Lord God, that whoever is listening right now will accept you as their Lord and Savior, and will put their faith and their trust in you, and will walk an even more courageous life and more miraculous life than I've even seen. I also pray, Lord God, that your will be done on this earth and for every single person watching, and that everyone will come to know and understand the full breadth and width of your love and your kindness and your unconditional compassion for each and every one of us. I love you and I praise you. In your holy name, I pray, Jesus. Amen. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Eliezer Jordan. Have a wonderful life.